I think in high school, it was like my savior kind of thing. It was the place that I went that I felt most comfortable and held up, you know.
Mhm.
Um, so high school was where I really started using art as like a place that I felt like I could really not have to worry about being graded and judged and, things like that. Um, so as much as I like when I was little, I wanted to be an artist, but then I kept thinking I'd rather be a marine biologist or a dentist or something like that. And I kept going through those phases, but really ultimately came down to wanting to be an artist. And my mom was really supportive of me saying, like that I wanted to go to art school, which was helpful. So
Mhm.
after high school, I went to VCU to go to the painting and printmaking department program to get a BFA, Bachelor in Fine Art. And that's where I really started going nuts for art, was there, you know.
And after that, how did you decide to become an art teacher?
Well, my mom always said that I should be an art teacher. And I was like, I'm not having it. I'm not going to be what you think I'm going to be. Right. I don't know if you experienced that, sarala, but so instead of going straight into art teaching, I moved around the country a little bit because it was freeing and because I wasn't tied down to anything. So I just took my art with me. And the one thing you could do as an artist after you graduate with your art degree is, besides making art, you could be like a house painter or something. So I was a house painter for a long time, and a waitress. That's what I did for a long time. And also within there, I was always trying to work with people in art. Do you know what I mean?
Mhm.
So like within all that, there was always my pull to work with people in an art studio situation and setting, like an art studio setting. So for example, when I finished the art schooling, I got the BFA at VCU. After high school, I moved out to San Francisco, and I was really attracted to this studio where a bunch of people were coming and going, and it was called Creativity Explored. And it was a place for adults with certain like neurodivergent minds. But back in the day, we called it adults with disabilities. Now we call it neurodivergent. Um, and so it was a place where these people were going to make art with artists like me, So I found myself really attracted to that place and working with adults with, disabilities, and they were making art seriously in a studio situation with another artist, like a mentor. So I found myself really attracted to that population. So then after that, I started working with adults with neurodivergent adults with special abilities or disabilities, whatever you want to call it. And so I did a lot of that stuff, teaching and working alongside with people that were screaming to make art, but no one was really listening to them. You know what I mean? So that was a really good ride for a while. And I was always teaching like at the Visual Arts Center, like afternoons, like 4 to 6 o'clock. I'd have these little classes where I would teach anything. And it was so amazing because it was only like 12 kids in the class. And you could really like, you could knock out a self portrait in 4 weeks, no problem, because you could really like show them how to paint. You know what I mean? In a class of 20, sarala, you turn your back for a second. You know what I mean? It's just, it ain't happening. It's, I'm still trying to make it happen, in the art room, but it's really hard. Um, so I think teaching was always something that I gravitated towards, but I never really thought of myself as like having a full-time job anywhere. I wanted my art to come first, not my job to come first. So along with all those jobs, I was always making art and having shows and things like that and piecing my life together and not really growing up and getting the job that works for the man. Do you know what I mean? So I was
Mhm.
kind of like a rebel a little bit. I'm not working for RPS or a school. I'm not going to do it. My art comes first and blah, blah, blah. And so that worked for a really long time. And then once I had kids, I was really tired of juggling all those jobs. And I thought, I'm pretty good at teaching. I should probably go back to VCU and get my bachelor in art education. So then I was about 44 with 2 kids, and I went back to VCU and got that part of my degree so that I could become a full-time art teacher. And I wanted to work in the public school system. And I'm so glad I didn't start teaching right out of the gate after high school, because I would have been probably antsy to do something else. Or, really, I don't know. I'm kind of glad I kind of like waited a while to have that full-time job. I don't want to feel burnt out or anything. You know what I mean? I suppose the kids, the people, creating an atmosphere where people, don't feel like they can't make mistakes. Like, I want them to make sure that there's no judgment, and there's no right or wrong. I like a place where there's no right or wrong. You know what I mean? So like in the art room, it's just this place where, you just have to try and fail and try and fail. And it's okay to fail. It's like part of the path to success or something. I just love working with kids so much. You get a lot of I can'ts. And with the elementary school kids, like, oh, I can't draw. And then, the whole project gets held up because they're so scared to put pencil to paper. But we get through it, and I'll help them, get those drawings done and get those drawings down. And so it's not really the product as much as it's the process of making art with them. I do really get jazzed at the end product, and that's what the kids want to see more than anything, is the end of what they started. And they really want to get to the end like right now. And it's so frustrating, because my thing this year is stop rushing so much. There's no prize for winning and finishing first. There's absolutely no prize for that. And it's one thing I'm struggling with, is just how fast everyone wants to go in their art, and how disappointed they are because they're not spending time on it. I don't mind seeing those eraser marks, like, slow down. And if all you have is, a line by the end of the time, that's better than you saying, I'm done, like 15 seconds into the lesson. That drives me bonkers. The more materials you pull out, the harder it is to clean up. And you know what I'm saying? Like, the harder it is to organize, and keeping the stamina up for being as enthusiastic as my mind is creatively, and then like physically keeping up with the stuff. Besides that, like, sometimes behavior management can be kind of a problem. I really like working with collage, with cut paper and layering the collage elements and like different materials onto a piece of work. I think because I like to do it too, but it's hard to teach it, because it's hard to, to push them to keep going. And if they go too far, they, sometimes they just go too far with the paper and just add too much paper onto the thing, or sometimes they just don't know how to layer it. And so I have to give a lot of examples for that. Like, you see how many layers made the eye, 3 or 4 different, circles to make the eye. And, like the face, has to have like a highlight detail of paper, blah, blah, blah. So that's kind of hard to teach, but I'd say that my favorite thing to teach, which is interesting because we don't have a kiln, is clay. I love teaching clay. I love working with clay and having the kids work with clay. So I just get air dry clay and have them work with that. The only problem with that is that it's really weak, and it doesn't get fired. So it's not as strong as it could be. So you do all this work, and then you're trying so hard for it not to fall apart. And if they didn't scratch and score, an arm or a head on there, it's totally going to fall off, and it can be sort of really frustrating. But I love doing some clay. I love doing clay. Kids love clay, period. Like,
yeah,
you never hear anyone going, no, I don't wanna, ever. So it's nice when they join you with their enthusiasm. And, sometimes a blank piece of paper and a pencil can be kind of intimidating. It changes every year. I think it has to do with the teacher, their homeroom teacher, and just the dynamic of the class. And I really like to be super flexible and feel the kids out what they like. And so it's not as efficient as it could be. And I think that that can kind of overwhelm me with, like, I'll do printmaking in one for 2 grade levels, and then I'll switch to clay. Like, it's too much, but it's how I roll. And it's not efficient, but I teach what I love. So and I'm always keeping it fresh. And sometimes when I keep it fresh, that lesson just totally flops. And I'm okay with that. I'm okay with going, oh guys, that didn't work. Well, how can it work better? If I didn't have the making art with the kids thing, I think that I would feel so off my game. You know what I mean? Like, if I had another job and I wasn't making art and I wasn't in an art field where I was working with art with kids, I don't think that I would feel very good. Like, I just don't think I think I would wither up, or else have an identity crisis or something. Like, it's it's so important to me to work with art with people, or even if I'm not doing it for myself. I would just tell myself, you'll find your way and there's no rush. There's no rush. And every move that you make can inform who you will be. And it's not for naught. You know what I mean? It's not like those waiting tables days. I'm really good in the art room because that's like I'm waiting tables in a way too. You know, like organizing and walking around the room and getting this and pulling this and putting this out and pulling this up when they're like knocking it around, like, stop taking the markers and going bam, bam. And I'm like picking it up so they'll stop making the noise and putting it back. And so, like, those waiting table days really help inform, like, just the way I navigate the art room in general. I mean, I do say get your own things to the older kids, but the younger kids, not so much. Just that everything leads to, you know, to where you should be. Like, all those things informed what I am today. And I really like my job, and I like being the art teacher at Patrick Henry. And I just feel so lucky. And I never ever felt really lost because I always knew I wanted to do art. You know, I always knew that I had to make art, and I like to work with people. So art, people, teaching. I just, you know, what would I tell my 18-year-old self? That it'll all work out.